Hello there, and welcome to this Women's Rugby League World Cup 2021 preview. I'm your host, Super Saiyan Blue Lucario, so grab a cup of tea and join me as we take a look at all 8 of the competing nations in this year's tournament. First, in Group A, we have the hosts, England. With the development of the Women's Super League, more sides playing at a higher level, pushing the competition to new heights, it could finally be England's time to step out of the shadows and take the sport to new heights for the women's game. England was semi-finalists in the last 3 World Cups, and on home soil, they'll be looking to break the duck and make the final for the first time. The England squad is largely built up of players from the 3 dominant Super League sides, the recently rebranded York Valkyrie, St Helens and Leeds Rhinos, and the familiarity of the players will lend itself to a well-oiled machine. Key players to look out for include Women of Steel, Tara Jane Stanley of the York Valkyrie, was essential in their push to the grand final this year. Fran Goldthorpe, Georgia Roche, Jodie Cunningham, and Wigan's Vicky Molyneux, all quality players who will be essential to England's chances. They are likely to get out of the group, but the final game with Papua New Guinea, with whom they've been in a back-and-forth rivalry over recent years, promises to be an electric game. I'm really looking forward to that one, as that is going to be key to determining who comes out of the group on top. Next, we just mentioned them, the Papua New Guinean side. The Orchids, they made their debut in the last World Cup, exiting at the pool stage with 3 defeats. However, they've come on quite strong since then, including claiming a victory over England in a recent test, which was developing to a very interesting rivalry between the two sides. They played Australia early in the year, and they competed for good portions of the match, despite the eventual one-sided scoreline. And they'll be confident of coming out of this group off the back of some powerful stars like Elise Albert, Tara Moxon as well. Their game with Canada will be crucial in terms for the progress, with the latter making the semi-finals at the expense of the Orchids last time out. Rugby League is the national sport of Papua New Guinea as well, so expect plenty of fire and passion for this side determined to progress and prove themselves on the world stage. Next, we have Canada. The Ravens made their debut in the 2017 tournament and actually made the semi-finals in quite an impressive set of performances. They'll be keen to impress again, and they will be hoping to get out of the group. However, with the standard of England and Papua New Guinea rapidly improving, it may prove to be a bridge too far. They lost a recent warm-up game to Ireland, who failed to qualify for this tournament, which may set alarm bells going. But being led around by New Zealand legend Laura Murray, whose vast experience will be crucial in tight games, they may have a chance of getting out of there. It all depends on their performances on the day. I think that it could be an interesting group, this one, for certain. Finally, we have Brazil. The Amazonas are in their first ever World Cup. They qualified after defeating Argentina. Not much is expected of them, being very new to each other and the game. Going into their recent warm-up game, only 2 players remained from that Argentina test and have any experience in the game itself at an international level. But their warm-up game with France that I just mentioned, there's plenty to be buoyant about. They look very well organised in defence, and they had a decent kicking game off the back of it, which was causing France a lot of problems and should help them compete. My only concern is game smarts close to the opposition line, which is something that comes through experience. Having the ability to break down defences and find the gaps, find the right lines at the right times to get through for important scores. Don't expect them to roll over. I think much like Jamaica and Greece in the men's game, they've earned their way here. They will play with a lot of pride and passion, and they'll be fun to watch. I think they'll throw the ball around and they won't have any fear. They will try everything they can, and they'll be looking to try and pull off an upset or 2 along the way. They might actually target the Canada game as one they can win, so keep an eye out for that game as well. So, of course, we have the group stage here, and I'm going to have a go at predicting the results here. First up, in a double-header match, England against Brazil. I have Brazil to win be comfortably defeated in this one by England. I think England will set their own marker, much in the way that the men's side did against Samoa. They'll want to get off to a fast start, and I think Brazil's defense will hold early on, but the additional speed, power, and skill from England will eventually break down the resilience of the Amazonas. I do think they're capable of scoring. I think that if they get chances close to England line, they might squeeze through, much in the way they did against France in that warm-up game. But I do expect this one to be comfortable for England. In the second game of the doubleheader, Papua New Guinea versus Canada, a massive game for both sides who are looking to try and earn their spot in the semi-finals. I think PNG will come out on top in a very tightly contested game. I'm going for 22-14 for Papua New Guinea. I think their recent internationals and the development it's given them will lead them through this game. I think they'll just about come out on top, but don't expect a walk in the park, as Canada will certainly be looking to improve on their recent performance against Ireland. In game 2, England against Canada. I think this one will be a solid win for England, who will see it as, this is how we get out of the group. This is how we secure our spot. I feel like they will run rampant early doors and push themselves to a comfortable lead, but then start to rotate, start to rest players, start to look at other combinations. And I think that might open the door for Canada to get a couple of scores. But I don't expect Canada to trouble England in this one. Meanwhile, PNG against Brazil. I expect this to be a bit closer than the England-Brazil game. I'm going 28-6 to Papua New Guinea here. Specifically because I don't see the high-scoring prowess on the PNG side at the moment. They're not in their previous internationals. They've not really got over the line a lot of times, and I think a stubborn Brazilian defense will be hard for them to crack, and it may take a while to do so. But I think they have too much for the Amazonas, and it'll be relatively comfortable, but it won't be a massive scoreline this one. In the final game, the one to decide the group winners, these games have been tight between the two sides, so I'm expecting the same here. I think home advantage might push England over the edge, so I'm going 22-18 to England over Papua New Guinea here. I think it'll be back and forth. It'll be a physical game, very hard-hitting, and possibly one of the games of the tournament as well. I think England will just about have enough to come out on top, and so I've got them to win by 4. Meanwhile, in the battle for third place, I have Canada to just have enough to overturn Brazil in another close game. I've got 22-12 for Canada. I think their added experience will be key to getting over the line here, over the Brazilian side. But I don't expect it to be a big score blowout. I think it'll be tit for tat early on, with Canada eventually pushing clear or some late scores to take the score away from Brazil, who will be lacking that quality in the final area of the field to really break down defenses. And I think that will come back to haunt them for winning games, but they will definitely benefit a lot from the actual tournament as a whole. They'll take that experience back home with them, and they'll be ever stronger for it. And I'm looking forward to seeing the future of the Brazilian rugby league team, certainly the women's game. Now to Group B. First up, Australia. Back-to-back champions, having won in 2013 and 2017. The Gillaroos are looking to make it 3 in a row, and it's very difficult to see past them. The NRLW has taken the game by storm. More and more sides added to an increasingly powerful competition in a professional atmosphere, and now we have State of Origin for the women. It's only increasing the standard of the players, the standard of the competition in the game as a whole, in the women's game, and they are really the pioneers behind the driving force of the women's game. And it's amazing to see just how far they've come in just a few short years. And the sky really is the limit for this side. It's impossible to choose just one or two standout players from the Aussies to look at. But I think Taran Aiken, the Brisbane halfback, is definitely among them. They're emerging as a real star in this game and could be the difference maker for the Gillaroos in their quest for glory. Next, New Zealand. Three-time winners. They're looking to end the heartbreak as they have made the final in all 5 tournaments. They need to right the wrongs of the last 2 and will be looking to do so here. They brought a very experienced side and they're heavily favoured to go all the way through to the final itself. Reaping the benefits of the NRLW, like Australia, they have a large number of representative players from that competition, and none more so than Racine Taylor, who's been superb for the Sydney Roosters. Expect some real fireworks in their clash with Australia, as this is likely to determine who will finish top in this group. Now we have France, who failed to make the last World Cup, but have made all the previous ones. It hasn't gone well for them in the past. They've often been blown away by some classy sides, but recent performances have given room for optimism. A solid performance against England earlier this year and a moderately comfortable win in the warm-up game against Brazil should give some confidence going into a very, very difficult group stage. As far as players to look out for, star centre Lauren Beville, who joined Wigan earlier this year in the Women's Super League, after an excellent player of the match performance against England, will be crucial as an attacking threat. Great fringe player who will need to see a lot of ball if France are to trouble the scoreboard against some very powerful Pacific sides. It is a tough ask for them to qualify out of the group, but they have a much better side than at previous tournaments, so hopefully will compete better than the scorelines that we have seen more recently in the past. I'm hoping that they can use this as stepping stone and build towards their hosting of the competition in 2025. Be tough to see them get through, but who knows? I mean, we could see 1 or 2 upsets, and don't back against them. Look at the bounce, look at the draw. Who knows what could happen there? Finally, we have the Cook Islands. Like France, they're really up against it in terms of qualifying out of the group for the first time. They previously competed in 2003 and 2017, and they actually shocked England in the group stage in the last tournament. But they're having to overcome much tougher sides in the group in the shape of Australia and New Zealand this time. They did get a confidence-boosting win over the England Knights in their World Cup warm-up game, which will give them some momentum, but for me, they're likely competing with France for 3rd place in the group. They have a few fringe NRLW prospects making up the ranks, including Ruben Wickie's daughter, Mackenzie Wickie, who seems a very bright prospect. But I think they'll struggle against the pace and the power of the other sides in this group. And it's likely to be a bit too much of an ask to get out of it. But looking forward to seeing them in action as well. So what about the group stage results for this one? I'll have a go at predicting these. I have New Zealand to beat France in the first game 44-12. I think it'll be much closer than previous meetings because France have a much stronger side than them. I don't expect them to trouble the Kiwis. I think it'll be a strong, fast start from the Ferns. Sorry, they're known as the Ferns, the New Zealand women. But which will be too much for France to live with. But I do think they might get a bit of joy out wide. I think there's a few gaps in defence out wide to be exploited based on watching the Ferns' recent internationals. And France do have some quality in their outside backs that could, if given an opportunity, cause a couple of breakthroughs. But New Zealand should be far too powerful there. In game 2, we have Australia against Cook Islands. And much like the New Zealand-France game, I expect Australia to be comfortable winners here. I've gone 56-6. I think Australia have just a lot of class in their outfit. They will really look to lay the platform for their 3rd title in a row, what they're going for. And the Cooks, I don't think they have anything to really live with them. I do expect them to get on the board. I think either a shock early score or a breakaway intercept, something along those lines, could well see them poke through, but it should be a very comfortable one for Australia here. In game 2, New Zealand and the Cook Islands, I think the Cooks will compete a bit better here. they will benefit from the experience of the Australia game and be a little more coherent in their shape and defense. I think they will compete longer periods of this game, but New Zealand's extra class and experience will shine through, and they'll be able to do enough to get the win here. So going 36-16 to New Zealand. Australia against France, I think it's going to be another long day at the office for the French here. Much like the Cooks game for Australia, too much pace and power, too much skill. I think this could be a day where they really cut loose on the edges. France, though, again, they'll have their opportunities. I think they're good enough to score a couple points here, but won't really bring much to trouble the Australian line, in my view. Brings us to the final round of the group stage. France and the Cook Islands. I think it's too difficult to pick a winner, so I'm actually going for a draw here, 18 apiece. I think both sides have class. Both sides have some good players who know their way to the try line. This is a game for pride. They will both target this one as a winnable game. Whether it'll be a draw is unlikely, but I can't really pick a winner between the two sides. I think they're very evenly matched, so I'm expecting a close, tight finish. I'm going to predict a draw here. I'm going to sit on the fence and predict a draw. Meanwhile, Australia and New Zealand, I'm expecting a brilliant game here. End-to-end stuff. Both sides, high quality on show. I think Australia slightly have the edge here. In the group stage game, I think they'll be just have that little extra. But these two sides, they know each other very, very well. It could go either way. And another one that's very difficult to call, but I think Australia might just have this one here. So on the back of these predictions, we will have the semi-final stage. There's no quarterfinals. It goes straight to the semi-finals. So that would be based on my prediction results. We would see England face New Zealand. And this one, I think, will be very, very tight. I think this is probably going to be viewed as England's final. And they will throw everything in. I think the home advantage might just bring England home here. I've gone for a 19-18 scoreline, possibly even after extra time. The difference maker probably coming down to the likes of Jodie Cunningham leading from the front, and potentially the likes of Georgia Roche as well, linking up with Tara Jane Stanley to cause the Ferns problems. I think that familiarity of a lot of the England squad will really help them in this game, and very, very tense on, very tough to call. I think England might just do this one. The other semi-final, however, I don't expect to be very close. I think the Papua New Guinea against Australia, it's a bridge too far, much like the earlier international. I think they'll compete for large portions of the game, and there'll be some massive hits put on by the Orchids, but the class will show from Australia. I think they will saunter through this one 40 points to 4, which leaves a final of England against Australia. And yes, I know I'm supposed to back the home country, but I think Australia are too good. I think they will make it 3 in a row. I think England, it could be very tense early on, so I don't expect many scores in the first half. I think possibly it could go in at all square at half-time, or England may even be slightly in front, maybe a penalty goal to put them up at the half. But the second half, the Gillaroos will show their class, much like a familiar story in the men's game, where it'll be very close for first half, and then that just one break, one key moment will turn the game and bring it in the Gillaroos' favour. I'd like to be proven wrong here, but I think it will be just a little too much. On the back of this tournament, though, I think if enough of the public buy into this tournament and watch the games, be it through BBC or attend them in person, I think that's going to make the decision makers take notice of the women's game. I think this tournament as well could be a major catalyst in driving forward the women's game, bringing them to a in England, possibly semi-professional or full-time status for the Super League sides. It'll certainly inspire another generation of players to see that this is what we could achieve. We could play this level. We have a pathway in the sport, and that could only be good for the growth of the game. Use what is happening in Australia as an example and build from it. And that's the key thing to take from this tournament. I'm very much excited to see what happens in the women's game. I'll be attending a number of the fixtures as well, starting with that double header for England first against Brazil and the PNG Canada game. So very much looking forward to that. Let me know down below who you think are going to come out on top in this tournament. Do you think there'll be some upsets? Do you expect a different set of semi-finalists? Or do you think that I'm pretty much bang on the money? Let me know in that comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I've been your host, Super Saiyan Blue Lucario. And until next time, it's time for me to have a cup of tea.